Hello everyone and welcome to SkillCapped. I'm Notorious Dub and today I'm going to be covering one of the most controversial topics in all of Valorant: how to counter the operator. Now, since the beginning of the beta, the Valorant community has had a huge problem with the love-hate relationship of the operator, with most people hating how strong the operator is and the rest of people loving it because they use it. But realistically, I'm sure we've all been in games where one enemy decides to buy an operator and the entire game changes, spiraling into a loss because your team isn't playing against the operator properly. But while the operator is extremely strong, it's actually pretty balanced with a ton of counterplay and ways to abuse the purchase, so it actually destroys the enemy's economy and it just takes a little bit of extra effort to deal with. Which is why today I'm going to be covering everything from how to optimize your aim battles against an operator in a standard fight if you need to take one, to the proper ways to play against an operator to avoid these bad fights altogether, and skyrocket your win percentage against enemies who decide to pick up the weapon. But as always, before we get too deep into the video, we have to talk about our question of the day, and today I'm curious, how do you guys feel about the state of the operator in Valorant? Personally, with the release of Breeze, I thought the operator was going to have a huge resurgence in the meta and start dominating all over again because of how long the sightlines are. But realistically, controllers are getting even more dominant in the meta, with Viper and Astra creeping into the meta more and more, countering the operator before it ever even really gets going. So while the operator still feels super strong when I pick it up, it feels like the times where I should be buying it are very rare at this point. But I'm sure you guys have a ton of different opinions than me on this, which is exactly why I want to hear from you. So let me know in the comments down below what you think about the state of the operator right now. Alright, so smokes and controlling an area are going to be the single-handedly most important thing for countering the operator. But before we get there, make sure you hit that tab button and check the scoreboard to see if the enemy has enough money for an operator. This basically means when an enemy has over 5,000 credits, they can have an operator, and you need to play accordingly unless you just really don't think they will. But also you need to keep in mind how likely it is for an enemy to have an operator, because if everyone on the other team has over 5k, they probably just have a lot of money and they're not saving up. Or if they all survived the previous round, then they probably don't have an operator because they would be wasting a gun to buy it. But if you look at the scoreboard on round 3 or 4 and everyone on the enemy team has around 3,500 to 4,000 credits and there's one agent on the other team with 5,000, you can probably guarantee they have an operator, and you should play to shut them down before they even get started. But now that you know or think the enemy has an operator, what can you do about it? Well, let's start with smokes. Now, smoking off areas is the obvious answer because long sight lines and unblocked vision is the perfect scenario for an operator to thrive in. So instead, you want to smoke off the problem areas of what you're trying to take. But that's the base level that a lot of people are already learning. You should also be changing up the smokes that you're throwing to counter the operator as well, and this is the next step to it. Traditionally, you would just be smoking off areas deep in the bomb sites to take control of a large area and post plant from that. But instead of throwing those and giving the operator a chance to fall back and reposition to take another shot, you should be throwing choke smokes. This way you can choke out an area and stop the operator from really having anywhere to play, like C side on Haven. When you're approaching C from long, you usually smoke off CT and garage and walk in to take control of the entire site. Instead of those smokes, you can smoke off the left and right side of the default box on site, and CT or garage or your entrance to C if you wanted to. This way an operator would literally just have nowhere to play on site if they were there, but it does make the site slightly more risky if the other team has shotguns or assault rifles, because you do give the enemy smokes to play in. But realistically, you're still at the advantage in those fights, and regardless, your smoke should be used right on top of any of the angles that you think an operator could be playing at, or to choke off the bomb site to keep all of the fights close range, so peeking with an operator would be a death sentence. And remember, if you're serious about improving, then go to SkillCapped.com to unlock our hyper improvement system that will teach you how to win more gunfights, master your agent, and so much more. It's also backed by our rank improvement guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. So come join over 500,000 satisfied members of SkillCapped. Improve that KDA and get the rank you've always wanted at SkillCapped.com. Link is in the description below. But then again, even with this smoke strategy, you can't always know where the operator is or have smokes readily available for you to deal with it. So let's talk about how to optimize your chances in a 1v1 against an operator with proper peeking strategies. Now, first and foremost, shouldering is going to be one of the best ways to get a kill on an operator, because the goal is not to actually peek the operator, but the goal is to show your shoulder to the operator just long enough to draw a shot out, but fast enough to where they can't actually hit you. And whenever they shoot, you immediately peek the corner and take the fight, or just take the area control that they gave you. But the trick is not to show too much of your shoulder and end up getting shot on your peek, so keep that shoulder peek tight and immediately get back behind the wall before they take their shot. And the next step up from the shoulder peek is the strafe peek. Now you can pull your knife out and jiggle peek the angle and see if the operator is there and get back behind the wall. And this is a great strategy that probably won't get you killed in most scenarios. But the strafe peek is much faster, and even in pro play, they almost never hit the shot on the strafe peeker. So the whole goal is to angle yourself towards the corner that you want to peek, run towards it, jump, Swing out into the angle, allow your eyes to get slightly past it where you can see, and immediately press A while holding W to drag your mouse back to the left to get back behind the wall, or press D while holding W and dragging your mouse to the right to get back behind the wall. And with this, you're staying at full running speed the entire time throughout the peak, but at an uncommon angle and a very unpredictable movement pattern. From there, you can catch a glimpse of the operator through your strafe peek, set yourself up to peek them, and immediately swing out and pre-fire the angle they were holding if you wanted to take the fight, and sometimes you have to. Or you could always just use that information to counter the operator, tell your team, and properly play around it, which brings me to the final peeking tactic: double peeking. Now, if the enemy is playing jet with the operator, the double peek isn't quite as effective because she can always just dash away if she's fast enough pressing it, but it's still worth doing if you're going to peek anyway. So the whole goal on the double peek is for you and another teammate to swing an angle at the exact same time. That way there are two targets on the enemy screen, making it less likely for them to be able to hit their shot, and you have two people shooting at them to kill them first and be able to get the trade whenever that first teammate dies. And not to mention, a 1-for-1 against an operator is a huge win for the team that killed the operator. But the basic strategy for the double peek is for both players to be peeking the angle, but the first person should swing it a little bit further than normal for that angle. That way he gives his teammate a little bit of room to peek out behind him so they don't shadow peek, and they're not going to be lined up so you don't get killed through your teammate. And even if you have to do like a 3-2-1 countdown to coordinate it, being able to double peek effectively will win you a ton of games. Even if it's not against an operator, it's just a good strategy to use. Next up, though, we have mobility. And mobility is one of those things that's very difficult for an operator to deal with because the operator naturally is quite slow. So a raise double satcheling into your face or over your head is an absolute nightmare for an operator holding an angle. And the goal whenever the enemy has an operator is to literally get on top of them with your mobility. So for example, if I'm playing raids and I know the enemy has an operator, instead of getting to the entranceway to satchel in to get that little extra distance, I'll start my satchels from a little bit further back. That way I have height and speed whenever I come around the corner. That way I can satchel straight into the middle of sight and air strafe right on top of the operator wherever they may be playing. Now there's always a chance they hit a good shot on me or no scope me, but way over half the time I'm winning that fight if I don't mess up my satchels, which is a very, very good trade to just take out an operator for a 30% chance that you die for it. But also you have to combine your mobility with your smokes that we talked about earlier. With choke smokes, it makes mobility so much more effective because raised satchels and jet dashes and omen TPs all leave you vulnerable for a little bit. And smokes in the middle of a site give you a safer place to pull your gun out and to play around and just be unpredictable in general with. But don't forget, whenever the enemy operator shoots, they do have a pretty long delay before they can get another accurate shot off. So if you hear the shot and are in mobility's range away, hit that Yori TP or jet dash and get in their face. Even if you miss a couple of shots, usually because it's an impulsive play, you're still going to have enough time to finish that kill off because the operator has such a slow rate of fire. But then of course we have to talk about forcing the operator players to retake or take a site in general. But really this is something that almost no one is doing currently. The other team has an operator, so everyone just gets scared and is afraid of pushing a bomb site, so they start playing way too slow. Instead, you should focus solely on getting to a bomb site and getting a plant down at all costs. But unfortunately, most games that I play in now are pretty much a team deathmatch for most of the rounds. But you really can't play that way against an operator. It's time to play objectives, and only push whenever you need to. Whenever you take a bomb site, stop pushing and start playing for post-plant crossfires where the operators have no chance. But it's whenever you start to get cocky and push your site take into CT to look for more kills, that's when the operator starts getting opening picks to open the round back up for their team, and you instead just threw away that round that you just had where the operator could have died. Instead, think about how slow the operator is when moving, and how slow the rate of fire is for the operator. That makes retaking with the weapon one of the worst things in the game as long as the enemy team is playing crossfires, and the operator has to slow peek nearly every angle and can't multi-frag if you're ready to trade. So, where the operator is strong at holding down an area and playing slow, force them to have to retake an area and play fast. Both of which are very inconsistent things for an operator to do, and are going to plummet the enemy's win percentage with an AWP if you're able to flush them off of an angle early and force a retake. But finally, let's talk about choosing the right fights, because it's not all about the tactics that you employ to take down the operator. Sometimes if you just pick to fight them at the wrong angle or wrong area, you just have very little chance of winning the round. And angle choice is the most important. So when an enemy has an operator, you don't know where they're going to be playing for sure, so what you do is you choose an area to push with your team with the thought in mind that they could have an operator. And you always assume that they are going to be in that spot with the sniper. Like A-Long on Haven, you choose to push this area and you assume that the other person's going to have an operator because they can afford it, and this is one of the worst areas to fight an operator on because if you push them off of the angle at first, they have plenty of time to fall back to site, get to a different angle, and get another shot off. And even then, they can fall further back into CT or wrap around the box to get another shot off before they actually die. So in that A-Long push, you've given the operator 2 to 3 free shots in positions that are very difficult for your team to trade out and probably still haven't killed them. But think about taking like B-side instead. If your entire team comes from grass, smokes off both connectors and peeks mid, if the jet is playing on top of the box in the middle of B-side, she can get one shot off and dash away so she doesn't die, but you're already up on B-side before she's actually ready to fire again. So in this scenario, the Jett has nowhere to go except either stay on site to get one extra shot off and die, or leave through A connector and not take another shot. So in this scenario, instead, you've given the Jett one shot and taken full control of B site in a decent position to play post plant. And that is if you let her get the shot off without flashing or forcing off of her angle beforehand. And even though B is a worse site to actually post plant on, it's way better than giving an operator a couple of free shots at your teammates. So keep in mind, you should be choosing fights that limit the amount of times the operator player can take shots, continuously fall back, and how difficult it is for you to actually trade out the operator player after they take a shot off or kill a teammate. Ultimately though, teamwork and playing proactively is going to be the most important thing for being successful against an operator. Everything in Valorant is trial and error, so learn from the mistakes you make today and improve them for tomorrow. But remember, if you want to improve, win more gunfights, and get the rank you've always wanted, then check out SkillCapped.com. Link is in the description below. But what do you guys think about the operator? And do you have any tips for playing around an operator in Valorant? Let me know in the comments down below, and while you're down there, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn those notification bells on, because we here at SkillCapped have a ton more comprehensive premium guides coming your way that you're going to want to stay up to date with so you can stay ahead of the pack. As always, I want to thank you for spending this little bit of your day with us, and I'm Notorious Dub, signing off.